Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode of our Game of Thrones podcast. I'm your host, Call Mine is Crazy, and I'm joined here once again by the infamous, the legendary Preston Jacobs. Preston?
Infamous and legendary, eh?
Well, like I said, I've been doing this slightly longer than you have, so, even though I've been doing this slightly longer, I feel like you've had more of an impact and pull in the community than I ever had.
I mean, I don't know. Some people would say I'd have a bad impact. I don't know.
That you're the Kellyanne Conway of the fandom?
Or something like that. I don't know. Is there a community? Is there a fandom? Like, is that an actual thing?
I would say so. And you have a lot of pull in it, I would say. You're very influential. You know, even though people think you're very crazy, you do have a lot of discussion-adding material put into it. But before we begin, a couple of things. First off, shout out to Ness the Celeb for the cool artwork. Thank you very much for that. And if anybody has any more fan art, please feel free to send them to me on Twitter or Facebook. It's always appreciated. The other thing I wanted to get into before we officially start this thing is to thank you all for the huge support and love on our last video. It was mainly a test video to see if people would like our collab, and they did. But I did notice a lot of you guys asking us to have certain GOT YouTubers on, and we're a little hesitant on that due to certain issues we've had with other content creators. We won't be saying any names, but I think it's best left unsaid for the time being, maybe in a future episode. But if you do want your favorite YouTuber who does this kind of content to come on with us, then don't ask me, ask them. Go to their comment section, Twitter or Facebook, and let them know to contact Right Team Review to get on this podcast, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Now you've made us into liars because, you said this was the first podcast.
Well, the first one was Preston, shut up. Also, there's because of our last successful test video, which wasn't the first episode, there's a couple of guys who had some questions for you. I hope you don't mind answering them.
Okay.
This one guy asks, who is your favorite YouTuber and who do you watch for Game of Thrones content? And I do not count, so you can't pick me.
I don't watch any other Game of Thrones YouTubers.
Why is that?
in all honesty, like the only other Game of Thrones YouTuber I actually do watch is you. And for like when new stuff comes out, like you tend to be on the pulse of like new news. But with like theory videos and stuff, not that there isn't other great stuff out there, but I don't watch it only because it's kind of not how I kind of see the series.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's nothing to say that this other content isn't great, but it's just like I come at both the books in the series, like, well, obviously I come at the series more with a critical eye. So most people's stuff is very gushing, like, oh my God, it's so awesome that Jon Snow, like,
we have a certain YouTuber in mind about that one.
Everything is awesome. Yeah. Well, I come at the show, more joking around, making fun of it. And with the book, like, I come at it with a kind of lens where I don't believe that magic or prophecy exists.
Right.
And that kind of is very limiting in how I see stuff. So a lot of time, like a lot of people really believe in prophecy that, the things are going to end exactly, with Azor Ahai, like defeating, the others and preventing the long night. And I don't believe in prophecy and I don't believe in magic. And that
is different from a lot
yeah.
of other content creators who do really believe in like the whole fantasy element of the show.
Right. I definitely look at the books as sci-fi, which of course like makes people, very upset with me.
Right. And what about the YouTubers you watch that aren't Game of Thrones content creators?
I watch Mr. Sunday Movies and Red Letter Media.
Mm-hmm.
I Game Grumps. I mean,
you watch Game
some
Grumps,
other...
but you don't like play video games, which I think is fucking insane. Because you and I would definitely have fun, like live streaming, maybe some Call of Duty or Destiny, or but hopefully in the future you can live stream some Game of Thrones from the Telltale game.
That would be fun. No, I have the Telltale game. I've been meaning to do a kind of let's play on that. But yeah, but I stay away from video games because I'm kind of like an alcoholic in that sense. I can't be near them, or else I'll just play them all the time.
You have a obsessive personality.
Yeah. I mean,
that makes a lot of sense.
Everybody, I wouldn't say everybody's obsessive, but like people that get really into shows, really into. I mean,
I understand. Yeah. Those hardcore fans who gotta go to Comic-Con every time dressed as Tyrion. Not that there's a problem with that, but I just wouldn't go to Comic-Con dressed as Dany,
or dressed as George R. R. Martin,
or dressed as George, which by the way, a lot of people don't really have to go that far to dress up like George, but there you go. I have another question here for you. This person asked you, what's the most annoying thing about the show that you really hate, and what's the most amazing thing about the show you do enjoy?
I don't like what they did with Jaime. I think that's the most frustrating thing for me.
Really? I love Jaime's little character arc
obviously, the actor that plays Jaime is wonderful, and he's got incredible comic timing. He's got this wonderful dry sense of humor. Mm-hmm. He's super likable in that sense. But the book, his arc is more about having an existential crisis and like choosing his own destiny. And
right,
there's a passage in the book about how he has the white book, which is the kind of the description of what the Kingsguard have done, and his page is mostly blank. And there, there's this statement. The chapter ends with it saying he could fill that page with whatever he wants, and that's kind of this existential idea of like man is in control of his own destiny, and he lives by his own code, and that's kind of where the Jaime character is going in the book. And if they're planning it with the show, he hasn't hit that yet. I mean, he's still.
I feel like he's more concerned about like honor.
Yeah, he's concerned about
being kept to his word,
family,
and what people perceive.
Living up to his dad, family, living up to being part of Cersei's life, supporting Cersei. These things that are.
Which is funny because in the books, there's a point where he and Cersei really just go separate ways.
Yeah.
But in the show, as we'll come to find out later on with the leaks, he's still in there. He's still really, really in there.
Yeah, and the show is kind of, and I'm not like the meeting with Brienne last season was very odd. How they handled it, him saying, "Oh, I didn't actually think that you'd end up rescuing Sansa, huh?" Kind of downplaying the oath of the Catalan oath, which.
Do you think the writers forgot about the oath?
Maybe they wanted to resolve it. Maybe, and I mean, I don't think they forgot about it because they definitely talked about it. But I think they were maybe trying to resolve it, but it was kind of a letdown for me. And it's strange because I actually thought the Jaime story was, in my personal opinion, I thought the Jaime story was the most well done story of last season.
You really last season 6 or
season
5?
Season 6. Because.
Really, because all he was really doing for me was he was kind of just there, complaining, couldn't really do much, and then they did the usual, have Jaime go somewhere so shit happens in King's Landing.
But I give it props because it's, if you go on a season arc kind of sense, the season arc starts with him like having Myrcella die and him being ready for family, and then going off to the Riverlands and telling Edmure, like, I don't give a shit about you. All I care about is like family and getting back to that. Like, the death of Myrcella had, and this is, having the show be the show by itself and like accepting that show Jaime is show Jaime. Like, I can look at that arc and say, oh, like Jaime like learned something on day one. Like he went off and like that knowledge that, the person he became after the death of Myrcella, like led him to that discussion he had with Edmure. And then he comes back to Cersei and he's ready to like be with her and maybe, be a father to Tommen. And then he comes home and Tommen's dead and Cersei's nuts. Like that, that story is like the most fulfilling arc. And it's, I mean, it ends ironically, but it's the most fulfilling arc of the, of season 6, in my opinion. If you take anybody else's arc, it doesn't really make any sense. Like,
Well, we'll have to go into
Yeah.
that at another point. But you basically hate how Jamie is in this show. But what about what you do like in this show?
I mean, the acting is incredible. I like how the show has gone minimal magic. You know, I think that's actually something from when I talk to book fans, I think book fans think there's a lot more magic than I do. And the show has minimized that magic to make people kind of question it. And I think that was really well done to make it more real. Because I think George R. R. Martin wanted that ambiguity. Like, he wanted people to, you know, to say, is this a magical world, or is this happening through some sort of, like, you know, science or technology? And it doesn't come off that way too much in the book. Like, the book really comes off like, oh, this is fantastical. There's prophecy. And the show actually, like, deleted all of these prophecies and deleted all of these dreams, which I actually kind of think works, you know?
I do wish there were certain aspects of, like, the dreams in there, because not all of them, but some of them would add a lot of intrigue to the show. I think that's what we're missing from the show, is the intrigue, you know, because one of my favorite, like, Dany's things in the books is her interactions with, I hope I'm saying this person's name right, Quaithi.
Yeah.
I'm talking about. She appears only once in season 2, and in book 2. And then, but in the books, she keeps appearing scarcely, but in the books, she appears more often. I feel like we're missing that intrigue, because Quaithe does appear to Dany, like, in a dream.
Yeah, or a glass candle, or you know, it's certainly ambiguous how Quaithe is communicating with Dany.
And, this is not really a question towards you, but I just want to back myself up here. Someone commented, Carmine, how much of a homo do you have to be to have Preston Jacobs on and ask him about a show-only theory? First off, like, you're when it comes to the theories in the books, you're on point. But I wanted to throw at you a show theory. It's show only, by the way. Something you probably haven't heard before. And according to you did like it. It is Preston approved, so that's my defense there. If you guys have any more questions for Preston Jacobs or myself for the next podcast, please leave them down below. And let's get to the leaks, shall we? So a lot of YouTubers have already done videos on these leaks, but I wanted to do this a bit differently. I wanted to go into these with someone else and get their thoughts on it, and do a discussion instead of a rant or whatever. Now, Preston, I don't think you've done a video on these yet, right?
No.
But you've seen them before.
I've just briefly looked over these leaks. I know nothing really about them.
So basically, to give everybody a little rundown of it, so basically someone, I guess, who's in the production team? I have no idea. So basically someone came on the Game of Thrones subreddit, and they released a lot of what's going to be happening in Season 7. Now, obviously, spoilers, I guess, but at the same time, we don't really know if this is true or not. There have been pictures corresponding with what this guy has been saying. Like, if he, like, in one of the leaks, it says that Tyrion and Jon Snow meet up again, and he did say that, but at the same time, we all kind of knew that would happen.
Right. I mean, yeah.
So we don't really know if these are.
You can guess.
Yeah, like, we don't really know if these are legit or not. So, you've looked over. Like, what do you think of it based on, like, just looking over it?
So looking over it, like, one of the things that strikes me is how the good guys keep teaming up and the bad guys keep teaming up, and it seems a little black and white, you know, like this idea that I don't know. I mean, I guess if the pictures confirm some of this, but it does seem kind of weird that, like, you know, all the characters that we like Jorah Mormont and Jon Snow and Dany and Gendry, they're all gonna, like, get together and have a brotherhood of good, and they're gonna go and kidnap a White Walker, while all the bad people like Euron and Cersei and, you know, they're gonna team up, and then it'll be good versus bad. You know, that kind of. Well,
but isn't that the most logical conclusion to this show, though? Because everybody is in a position to where they can meet up. I mean, we're gonna get into this, but, like, Jon is the leader of the North. he's in a position to meet with other leaders who just happen to be Euron, Cersei, and Dany. And because Tyrion is Dany's like right-hand man, he's gonna meet up with Tyrion again. And I will say, even though one of the greatest things about Game of Thrones and the books is that there's constantly new characters coming in and changing up the game, you can't really have that in a show with like already 30 million established characters. I get that, but at the same time, I also see where you're coming from. It's not very George R. R. Martin-ish because everything's gray.
Right. And I mean, this is a big difference between the book and the show. And even when George R. R. Martin like talked about when he wrote his first proposal for the book, he said that there's going to be phases of characters. Phase 1 characters are going to come in, they're going to get replaced by Phase 2 characters, and they're going to get replaced by Phase 3 characters, and then the story will end. The show took Phase 2 characters and made them characters from the beginning. Like, for instance, Jaime is a Phase 2 character, I like to say, or Theon is a Phase 2 character, and they made
I would argue with you on that one. I would say Jaime is a Phase 1 character.
I mean, he spends the first book, like, I mean, he does have a brief fight, like with Ned, and a brief breakfast with Tyrion,
but he's also a major part.
Right, but he fights an off-screen battle and then is in prison. You know, and that's so we don't see him that much.
Right.
You know, like Theon is there too, but Theon's not really like a big character until the second book. Or like Sam is there too, but he's not a big character until the third book, you know. So we have these like, you know, that's why when I say the characters are coming in the phases. And then of course, like once the Dornish and the Ironborn kind of come on and John Connington come on board, we have these like third phase characters. But the show kind of like introduced these characters early, tried to increase their roles. Theon, Jaime, Cersei had bigger roles in the show than they did in the book early on to keep everything static, like, you know. And
well, let me say this though. Ned Stark, Arya, Bran, they're Phase 1 characters. Would you say like Stannis, Melisandre, Davos, and Ramsay, they're like Phase 2 characters? They come in.
Yes.
And then Phase 3 characters would be Euron Greyjoy, Doran Martell, Quentin, and
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I say like, yeah, I actually like how I define it. There's only 3 Phase 2 characters. There's Jaime, Sam, and Theon. And then everybody from the first book is, you know, Phase 1 characters. And then Phase 3 characters, there's just a slew of them, you know. Like you have, you know, the Martells, the new Greyjoys, John Connington, you know, Melisandre.
Right.
Like, all these new perspectives, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this. We're going to start with, by the way, are you recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure.
Make sure. No.
We don't want to rehash what happened a while ago.
I've fucked Carmona over a couple times now. The first time we recorded something and then I had some clicking on a mic, and then we recorded something and I'd forgotten to hit the record button, and so
like I said, I should be mad, but it's so funny. Like, that Preston. Like, come on. Well, I'm just making sure you're recording, because a lot of people, I will say a lot of people are saying, we need more of this, I'm like, I'm trying to, but fucking Preston, motherfucker over here.
It's all my fault. It's all my fault.
But let's get to Episode 1. Episode 1
okay.
is, I guess the slash means it's directed by Jeremy Podesta. I don't know if he's done anything else in Thrones. I don't really pay attention to the director. But, so at Episode 1, the basis of what's happening is the White Walkers are marching south towards the wall, which we do expect. Bran crosses the wall. He meets up with Ed, and which once again, I in order for the White Walkers to really just get past the wall, the big theory is that the Night's King put a mark on Bran, and him passing the wall will make the wall's magic nullified. What do you think of that?
Yes.
You believe that, right?
I think that's probable. Yeah, probable for the show. I think, you know, my opinions on the book or something else, but yeah, I think that's very probable for the show, that yes, Bran will somehow, like, you know, release, you know, knock down the magic, and suddenly they'll be able to cross the wall.
And the next thing that happens is Sansa. I like this part because this does. You were one of the few YouTubers who actually touch on this about the whole Sansa, Jon, and them being kind of like rivals, and like But this thing here says Sansa wants to give the lands of those who betrayed Jon to those who supported him. I guess like the Karstarks and the Umbers, she wants to give lands of those people to the ones that helped Jon out, like the Mormonts and the what's that show on the? It was like blue with yellow balls. I forgot what
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, like she wants to give like the lands of those people to those guys, and Jon. And this is all in the first episode. Jon refuses to hold the children of the Karstark and Umber families responsible for their actions of their fathers. This doesn't please Lyanna Mormont or Sansa, but Jon basically just tells her to deal with it. He doesn't plan to rule the North the way it's always been, which I like that.
I mean, I think that's I think this is very likely to happen. What would make sense would be Sansa offering the lands to Vale Lords. I mean, honestly.
That's right. They're still there.
They're the ones with the army. Like these other guys, it's like, oh, these 12 dudes. Like I would be more focused on, pleasing the people that actually won the war, which are the Knights of the Vale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the show screwing up and having that be a dispute.
I'm also well, I guess they have the gift, but the wildlings, I figure like they would want a bigger piece of the pie since they were in the bulk of the fighting, even though they were getting their asses a little handed because of Jon's like stupidity. Motherfucker didn't keep the formation. And,
I mean, I agree that both wildlings that survived the battle should have some lands.
Mm-hmm. But they have the gift though, so
they do have the gift. If they remember that the gift exists. I mean, I think it's certainly believable. And there would be a nice parallel to the fact that like the way Robb screwed up was by trying to punish Karstark,
right?
And Jon would be proving himself like to be a better king than Robb in doing that. To be
nice little contrast there.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, like, Jon has to, like, his whole, like, if he's going to be a better ruler, he has to really understand, like, who he's ruling and how to make compromise and things like that. And it can't all just be about, blind justice, which is, Robb's problem, so.
But would an exile for the families of the Karstark and Umber, would an exile be better? I mean, they're always going to be known as those who betrayed the Starks. Those who turned their back. And I'm sure they had good reason. The Karstarks had good reason, because Robb did fuck up their lord. But the Umbers, I feel like exile would be better for the whole family. And then maybe just maybe marry off the daughters of one of those, each of those houses off to one of the wildlings. That way the family line does live on, but exiling the men in the Karstark and Umber families to either Essos or the Wall. Don't you think that would be a little bit better?
I guess, but we don't know what the kids did, right? I mean, I guess you're supposed to ward them somewhere else. I mean, isn't the whole thing like? I mean, Tormund went and bit Umber's head off or something, bit his ear off. I forgot their little fight, but their boss battle. But yeah, could all be possible, but yeah, I would just ward them somewhere. Then you have hostages. If you exile them, then they can cause trouble. They can go and get 10,000 Dothraki screamers.
Find a magical fireproof white girl to birth some dragons
have pots of gold
back.
poured over their head, and next thing you know, they're liberating slaves.
We gotta do this all over again.
I know.
Speaking of which, at the end of episode 1, according to this, Dany and her fleet land at Dragonstone, which I would love for them to land at Storm's End, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Dany and her fleet land at Dragonstone, and nobody says anything. She walks up the steps to the keep, and we follow her through the building until she reaches Stannis' old war room, where he has the giant map of Westeros, and she looks out at the window at the land ahead that used to belong to her family. She picks up one of the chest-like pieces on the table and looks at Tyrion, who has been following her up, and she says one line, "Shall we begin?" End of episode 1. I think that's a great ending, but the only thing I would change there is, instead of a Dragonstone, Storm's End. Because Storm's End is the Baratheon castle, like Winterfell. For those of you who don't know, Winterfell is the Stark castle. Storm's End is the Baratheon castle. I would feel like it'd be like kind of poetic justice and kind of a fuck you to invade the Stormlands and take Robert's castle like Robert took her castle of
right. I
Red
mean,
Keep.
there would be a fun little inverse to that, like Stannis trying to invade from the Targaryen castle, and then the Targaryens doing it from Storm's End. I think would be a clever twist on that. I mean, they're clearly trying to make a Aegon the Conqueror parallel, but also they're trying to reuse sets. I mean, they built that nice set with that nice table.
I know. I just want to see all the castles because we haven't
yeah.
seen the Sunspear, we haven't seen Storm's End, we still haven't seen Casterly Rock, even though it's been mentioned multiple times.
Oh right, yeah, Highgarden, yeah, no. I mean, they would have to do a whole new animation for the opening crawl of going to Storm's End, or they just might call it the Stormlands. You never know,
Right?
But yeah, they built that table. They're gonna use that table. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Okay, so episode 2, directed by Mark Malud.
But I just want to say, like, almost everything in that first episode, the leaks, like, seems very believable. Like, I mean, if they did, and the pictures seem to back up a lot of it. So,
Well, what do you think about the first episode? Is it good? To me, that looks okay. I'm sure there are still a lot of things that are going to happen in episode 1 that is clearly not written down here, which is fine. I like that, but we're getting the basis of what's happening.
right. I mean, if things go according to the past couple seasons, we know that, nothing will happen for the first 5 episodes, and then
I wouldn't say that. Like, that happened in the first episode for season 6, which fucking annoys me. Like, season 6, episode 1 felt like deleted content and scenes from season 5, and I fucking hate that. But I like this episode 1. Like, the way it ends, not bad. Sansa and the whole Sansa Jon dynamic, that's cool too. Bran finally meeting up with Ed. I just hope this is not all that happens. I just hope we're leaving up a lot of stuff because, we didn't mention Cersei. The leaks didn't mention Cersei. Didn't mention Euron or the Sand Snakes or Theon or, Brienne, which I hope she has more of a fucking presence this season. She was barely in the last one.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah,
and, you know why though, right?
Because of filming Star Wars?
Yeah. Like, I'm assuming the reason she wasn't in season 5 all that much, and season...
Like they couldn't have used a body double?
Is there a tall, short-haired blonde woman for Brienne?
No, I'm talking about Star Wars.
Oh, okay. They could have. They could have. And what's funny is, in Star Wars, you've seen episode 7, right?
Yeah.
She's only in it for, like, less than 5 minutes. So they could have, I guess. Well, let's put it that way. There really is no excuse for how Brienne has not been in the show that much. Wow. So episode 2 is once again directed by Mark Malud, and basically
the only director I'd like to know, like, who is the guy that did the Terminator Arya episode?
Why do you want to know about him?
Because I want to know which, like, episode to make fun of the most.
You didn't like that episode?
Oh, I mean, that was the worst episode of Game of Thrones I've ever seen.
Really? You did not like it? Oh, God.
No, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
Well, I'm sure you're talking about the part where, like, she gets stabbed and then she dives into that dirty, filthy water,
right,
and her wound doesn't fester. Are you talking about that?
Yeah, and she's acting completely out of character. And
I have a counter. I have a counter. Maybe the reason she doesn't get infected from, like, that knife and her falling into that dirty canal water, the reason her wound isn't festering is probably because she drank from the fucking the little pond in the House of Black and White, and maybe that gives her immunities to any diseases or infections.
Or maybe people have come from the planet Zeist and she's become a Highlander again, and it's a Highlander 2 reference, but
I've never seen Highlander 2, but I'm sure some people would understand it. But episode 2, Mark Malud, Jon receives a raven from Dany. She's summoning the lords of Westeros, which I can see that. Jon and Davos decide to go because they need the dragon glass from Dragonstone. Once again, that also makes sense to me because, Davos was at Dragonstone for a very long period of time.
Yes.
So he would know that they're there. Jon leaves Sansa in charge of Winterfell. We need a Stark at Winterfell. And Jon leaves Ghost at Winterfell, where he stays all season. Wow. I feel like in the show, I feel like in the books, the direwolves have more things to do than they do in the show.
It costs a lot of money to do CGI fur. You can't have direwolves just
But can't you just have a double
running
any other
around?
wolf will do?
You gotta save it. You gotta save it for dragons.
That's
can't
true.
Can't be wasting all this money on direwolf for animation.
But it would make more sense though. Like during the Battle of Bastards, it would make more sense to have a cameo of Ghost with Jon saying, "Oh hey, keep Sansa safe." They never had that, so you could I hope they correct it this time. If Jon does leave Ghost at Winterfell with Sansa, please have a fucking scene of Jon saying to Ghost, "All right, boy, keep her safe." That would make more sense, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's true. It's true. But
like having Ghost be Sansa's bodyguard. I mean, a giant fucking wolf being someone's bodyguard. Sign me the fuck up. But they need to have that scene to where it makes his absence make sense.
Yeah, it's true. But on the other hand, it would also be nice to have a scene where Jon and his direwolf meet Dany and Drogon, and have that kind of not only to mirror the Jon to Dany dynamic, but to have their animals meet dynamic.
Their sigil animals.
Yeah,
But what do you think of episode 2? I mean, it's basically an episode to move into episode 3. Episode 2, usually nothing big ever happens in episode 2s of Thrones. It's just to take the opening and go right into the stuff.
Right, but it's also we begin to see where this leaker is. Clearly this leaker is not near Brienne or the Sand Snakes or Euron. You can tell what
So do you think he's a Team Wolf, Team Stark guy?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he seems to be wherever Jon is.
Right.
When I look at these episodes, Jon is in almost every single one of, I mean, until episode 7, he's following Jon.
Right.
So
it might be Kit Harington himself. You don't know who's leaking this shit, which I think would be great.
I think it's his hairstylist.
That's awesome. I wouldn't put it past him. So episode 2, it's okay, not much information to go on. Episode 3, also directed by the same guy. In episode 3, according to these leaks, Jon and Davos arrive at Dragonstone. Tyrion meets them on the beach, and the Dothraki take their ship. Tyrion brings them to Dany, encountering Missandei and Grey Worm on the way. The throne room, in quotes, contains a number of Dothraki. And Dany and Jon meets, finally. She demands he bend the knee, which he refuses. Evidently, he discusses the White Walkers, but she doesn't believe him. Tyrion insists that Jon is not crazy. Davos tries to mention Jon's resurrection, but Jon dismisses it. I guess it really isn't important whether or not you come back. Well, it is, but in this context, I guess it wouldn't be to him. Dany respects Jon immediately. Jon to Dany, maybe not as much. Brienne arrives at Winterfell, and Mira returns home. I will say, that's the end of episode 3 leaks. I will say that it was weird that we didn't get the House Reed in Jon's battle with the bastards.
Right. I mean, House Reed, yeah, I mean, completely forgotten from the show, essentially. I mean, other than, Jojen and Mira themselves. But,
well, I wouldn't say they were forgotten. The show did make it, if they were truly forgotten, the show wouldn't have made it a fucking they wouldn't have gone out of their way to include Jojen and Mira's father at the Tower of Joy. They would have just kept it as some nameless guy. But you can clearly see that it is a member of House Reed, most likely Jojen and Mira's father, because you can see the crocodile sigil on his little jacket. So if they really did forget House Reed, they wouldn't have included him. So, yeah, I just don't get why not include House Reed. Because we got the Glovers, the Umbers, the Karstarks, we got the Mormonts, of course.
I mean,
but why not House Reed?
They had their chance to talk about them when they had the Deepwood Mott scene in season 4, but it's not like they weren't down in that territory. In fact, so many people passed through, Moat Cailin. Did I say Deepwood Mott? I said Moat Cailin.
Right, Moat Cailin.
I mean, so many people passed through that area. We could have had a shout out to House Reed at any time, but no one's done it.
Yeah, and was House Reed even at the last episode meeting last season?
No.
I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe House Reed does come in at the end, because I really don't see the point in having included House Reed in the episode 3 flashback scene with young Ned. The whole Dany and Jon thing, while it's cool to see them meet, I would feel like their relationship would be very rocky at first. Like, she wants him to bend the knee and he won't, so I figured she'd be kind of annoyed at that. We have heard like rumors that Dany is going to be burning some other lords of Westeros who don't agree with her. So why isn't she burning him?
I mean, that particular line, like Dany respects Jon immediately, Jon to Dany not so much. I don't believe that line. I mean, if they are going to do, knowing television, right? When you have two characters that are clearly gonna like get together, when they first meet, they both hate each other, and then everyone's like, oh gosh, and then they like each other. Like, that's how all the relationship is. Like, the whole Dany respects Jon immediately, Jon to Dany not so much. That sounds like fans. Like, all the fans that like love Jon and like hate Dany, like that's how they feel. Like, I don't see Dany respecting Jon immediately. Like, why would she respect Jon immediately? Maybe
the word respect is misused. Maybe she admires Jon because in the face of her fucking dragons and her army and the fact that she can demolish him at any second, he's defiant to bend the knee. So maybe she's like, okay, he's got balls. Maybe she respects him for not, immediately bending the knee, probably like other people have, maybe.
This is the son of the usurper. Like, the usurper's dogs. Like, he's still Ned Stark's son. Like, Dany still hates Ned, despite, Barristan's little stories. Like, there's no reason to like Jon. Like, she should hate the guy. Like, this guy's dad, like, essentially killed my dad. Like, I just don't see that one happening. But, maybe, only in the sense that, like, the showrunners would have completely forgotten, like, character motivation, but, like,
right,
which is certainly possible, but there's no reason to respect Jon.
Like, well, we have, and this is one of the things that annoy me about this show is that there have been chances for there to be I think there was a conversation between Tyrion and Dany where they talk about how some of the houses, but I don't think it went into length. There have been chances where the show could have given us a scene between Varys and Dany, or Tyrion and Dany, where Dany's saying, fuck all of them. The Starks, the Lannisters, they're all the same. Because I do remember it being a thing in the books where Barristan does talk to Dany, you're right. But in the show, I don't think there has been a scene where someone sits her down and says, hey, look, the Starks and the Lannisters, even though they had a hand in overthrowing your dad, two completely different people. They're different houses. They have different histories. It's not the same. And
right. Dany's break the wheel speech made it sound like all the houses of Westeros are the same. Like,
but no one corrects her.
Yeah. Right. No one corrects her. She should be arriving thinking that Jon is a rebel and the son of a guy who killed her dad, and that there should be and raised by this guy with his values. Like, she should have no reason to like him. She should, it should be completely antagonistic, which builds into the sexual tension for when they eventually bone.
They eventually bone. And let's get to episode 4. Actually, what do you think of episode 3 so far? Good? No?
This is where you start seeing like a few misses from the guy, from the story. Like, for instance, Mira returning home. Like, is that really a way to get rid of Mira? Like,
Should she still be with Bran? I mean,
if you're gonna, the show has for the most part killed off characters in order to have it be like a punch to the gut. Like, why wouldn't you kill Mira? Like, that's a.
but what would be the point in killing Mira?
What was the point of killing Osha? Like, because it shocks
Because she
people.
had nothing else to do. Like, Mira still has a part to play. Mira can be, depending on who you ask, she can be Bran's wife, or she could be Bran's protector. She could fill a role like Brienne fills with Sansa, where she's there to help. Sword.
It's true. It's true that someone like needs to be removing the stool from Bran's colon, and we haven't, now that Hodor is gone, like someone needs to be doing that, and it's, has to be Mira. But now that they're back at Winterfell, like he's got people there, and so Mira is no longer, useful. But is she returning home to get troops? I thought she was returning home to like say goodbye to the show.
We don't know, because I don't think these leaks mention Mira ever again. So I would assume that she's going home to tell her dad what's happening. But maybe we might see her at the end bring some troops. I highly doubt the show will introduce what's his name? What's her dad's name? I forgot.
Howland Reed. Yeah.
Exactly. I doubt the show will ever introduce Howland Reed, because introducing Howland Reed would need for Howland Reed to explain why he hasn't been helping out this entire time. Why wasn't he with Jon? Why wasn't he with Robb? Okay, you were making sure Catelyn was protected? Got it. Then how come you let the Veiled Knights go by? Why weren't you with Peter Baelish? If Peter Baelish managed to convince you to let him through, why weren't you with Baelish? Why didn't you answer Jon's call?
They might have him appear to kind of reveal Jon's lineage, but most of the reasons why, for instance, in the book, why Howland Reed like needs to be brought into the story have to do with things like Robb's will,
right.
the real secret of what's on the Isle of Faces, like endgame stuff, higher mystery kind of stuff, the Green Men, but stuff that they're never going to introduce in the show. But
exactly,
and maybe Robb's will, which is just not part of the show. But
I feel like this all could have been possible if the show at least had 12 or 13 episodes. I feel like it.
Oh yeah, they waste so much time of like awkward silences and like Tyrion
with Sam and Gilly,
and Tyrion making bad jokes and like people eating dinner while not saying anything for 10 minutes.
The Missandei and Grey Worm subplot, which isn't Missandei like 12 in the books?
Yeah, something like really young, 11 or something. Arya sweeping. There is plenty of time.
I remember that. That was so dumb. Her washing some old guy, and it was just awkward.
It was
5
literally
minutes.
10 minutes. It was literally.
She's giving
like
this fucking
minutes.
random lucky guy a sponge bath, and this is a part of my training to give this man a sponge. Gotcha.
And now I'm a Terminator. Yes.
Episode 4. Wow, there's nothing for episode 4 here, except for Arya arrives at Winterfell. But we also know that Arya, supposedly, at some point in the story, she kills off a lot of the men at the Twins.
Yes, we kind of know that, there's the whole, she's going to poison everybody at the Twins kind of a thing that's probable. That's something to happen in the first 3 episodes from some other plots.
And supposedly she's meeting back up with Nymeria.
Whoa, well that's why I guess they are going to spend some money on fur. CGI fur. I could see it happening. She's been spotted on set, so I guess it's going to happen. Character-wise though, I'd ask why isn't she going after Cersei?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's her list. And Ilyn Payne. She's got to find Ilyn Payne and Cersei. They're both in King's Landing.
Ilyn Payne hasn't been in the show for a while. I think the actor was diagnosed with cancer, but I don't know what's the I don't know if he did die or not. I'm not aware of that, but that is something that really kind of annoys me, that certain characters we see in the show originally are they barely come back. So I would like her to complete a little bit of her list. But I will say I can I can accept this. Her going to Winterfell instead of going straight down to King's Landing. She wants to be home.
Yes. Though, she could have done that before the twins as well. I mean,
True.
I get it. I get it that they have to. I mean, I get it that they can't blow the whole wad like right now. I grant it that they have to make Cersei last, and they have to have that be season 8, and that has to be like an end showdown. I grant it. So
this is true. They did originally want only 7 seasons.
Right. So, I mean, even though it doesn't make much sense, like, plot wise, they need to end with Arya and Cersei. They can't just have her go and do it right away. So I get why she's going to Winterfell now.
Well, she's also going to Winterfell to do something fucking annoying, which we'll get into. Completely fucks up my favorite character. But in episode 5, Sam leaves Old Town for Winterfell with Gilly and baby Sam. And he's
already a maester.
Already a maester. I was about to say, like, that was quick. Unless season 6 and season 7, the in between, because Time with Thrones, like the time, like to get to places or to do things, is right. So like twisted and we don't know.
Everything's off. Yeah. Like John can do a complete tour of the North in the same time. Yeah, it's as Sam takes to get to Old Town. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam leaves for Old Town for Winterfell with Gilly and baby Sam. Jorah reunites with Dany.
Still a baby.
Still a baby. Jorah reunites with Dany at Dragonstone. Jon receives a raven telling him that Bran and Arya are at Winterfell, so at this point Jon is still with Dany at Dragonstone. Jaime, Bronn, Tyrion, and Davos have a secret meeting at some point where Tyrion tries to persuade them to surrender to Dany, which Jaime ignores. Unclear if this happens before or after Dany ambushes the Lannister army. There has been footage captured of Peter Dinklage and, Liam Cunningham, who plays Tyrion and Davos respectively, filming together, appearing to be preparing a boat to leave the beach. This might be the meeting for them to go see Jaime. Right. Gendry is back in King's Landing making weapons, and he is found by Davos.
Still rowing outside. Like what would be funny is if they found him like 200 meters away from Dragonstone. Like all this time he's only been
have you seen the video where Davos has been apprehended by, well, not apprehended, but he's in, like, the Gold Cloaks encounter Davos on the beach, and Tyrion gives Gendry his father's warhammer, Robert's warhammer, and Gendry uses it against the Stormcloaks to save Davos. Have you seen that before? Have you seen that video?
No.
It's a cool video, I will say, but at the same time, like, I know how to feel about that. Like, okay, so Gendry... First off, why would Gendry go back to King's Landing if the Gold Cloaks want to kill him? That's why he left in the first place. Well, one of the reasons why he left.
I mean, I guess it's the only city he knows, but it'd be a dumb move. I mean, he'd go anywhere. I mean, literally anywhere in the world would be a safer place than going back to King's Landing. But and they give him a warhammer. That's kind of lame. I mean, Robert. One of the things, Robert is not a character that anyone would want to emulate, but I guess. I don't know. I guess show Robert's a little nicer than book Robert, but
well, suppose I would agree with that. But supposedly, we're not seeing this. I'm not seeing this here, but supposedly what they're not saying is because episode 6 starts out a little weird. So let me give a little explanation for this. Supposedly Jon, there's a fellowship built. Supposedly it's Davos, Jon, Gendry, the Hound, Beric, is it Beric? Thoros of Myr, and like another person, and they all go towards Eastwatch by the sea. And the reason they're doing this is they're trying to get proof of the White Walkers. Because episode 6 starts off with the party arrives at Eastwatch by the sea. So this is the party I was just talking about. The party arrives at Eastwatch by the sea by boat, though it's likely they leave Dragonstone during episode 5. Tormund is there. Okay, it's Tormund, the Hound, Beric, Thoros, they're in the dungeon, and Davos stays behind. So it's Davos, Jon, and Gendry, and Jorah, and they're all, like, hunting for a white.
So it's a lot of red shirts, is what you're saying. Like, I mean, they're not, like which character is the most used? I mean, clearly Thoros and Beric are going to die.
Right.
The question is who else is going to die on that trip? I mean, is it a good place to kill off? Is it a good place to kill off Jorah? Is it a good place to kill off the Hound? I don't know.
But back to this. The team is attacked by the Night's King army, including a white polar bear, which I want to see this. The bear kills Thoros, apparently a slow death, and Jon, Gendry, Thoros... Wait, what? Jon, Gendry, Thoros, Tormund, Jorah, and Benjen have been spotted in these locations. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So, the team is attacked by the Night's King army, and a white polar bear kills Thoros, and it's a very slow death. Jon is almost killed, but Benjen arrives and sends Jon off with his horse while continuing to fight the Horde. Jon watches Benjen as he's swarmed by the undead, and Jon rides off half dead to safety. Apparently at some point Dany comes to help out, and Viserion, am I saying that right?
You can pronounce it any way you want. Some people say Viserion.
Viserion, that's also cool, is killed and raised as the Night King's mount. And Jon offers to lay down his title as King of the North if Dany and her forces will help out against the White Walkers. This scene is private. One thing I did leave out is that before Dany rescues the group, they are stuck in an icy lake and are surrounded, and she comes and has them get on one of the dragon's back, and Jon is left behind, not on purpose, and that is when Benjen comes to help him, which is good because Thoros of Myr dies from the white polar bear, which means he can't really resurrect anybody if they die, so there you go.
That's convenient, yes.
And convenient. Benjen joins the fray, and he comes in to help Jon. Apparently Dany and one of her dragons comes and joins the fray, but he's killed somehow. I don't know how he's killed. Maybe... The one thing we haven't seen is we've seen the White Walkers have, like, those spears, those kind of, like javelin-like weapons, but maybe there's, like, a White Walker ice bow and arrow?
I mean, it would be really dumb of her to have the dragon like go low to the ground when he doesn't need to be. But I mean, what about an undead crow, an undead raven, like goes up there and just like stabs him in the eye? Like that's what I do. That's what I'd do. But it'll probably be something dumb, like she got too close to the ground and then they throw a spear at him or something. But
kind of like what happened with in season 5 when she's being rescued and Drogon comes down there, and the Sons of the Harpy almost completely kill Drogon because they're throwing so many spears at it. So I can see that being a thing here as well. In episode 7, Sansa sentenced Littlefinger to death, which Arya carries out, and I kind of fucking hate that because Littlefinger has been such a great character, and he's the reason the show is even there because, of his fucking plots. And just to have him... I mean, I would love for Sansa to kill him herself.
Yeah.
I like, my perfect death for Littlefinger would be, like, Littlefinger lets his guard down around Sansa, and she's learned so much from him, she eventually betrays him the same way Littlefinger betrayed Ned. Like, she has a knife to his throat, and she's like, I did warn you not to trust me.
I mean... I guess, is she going to find out that Littlefinger was pretty much responsible for Ned dying, or...
Well, Varys and the Hound were the only people in that room.
Yeah, that are still around.
Yeah, or maybe it could be Cersei. Cersei was also in the fucking throne room when Littlefinger betrays Ned.
But how are they getting that information to Arya? Did the Hound ever tell that information to Arya?
I would think that Cersei sends a raven to Winterfell. Because Cersei does know that Sansa is there, and when Cersei finds out that Littlefinger has betrayed her, she could do something like that.
That would be smart. That would be a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So, meeting at the Dragon Pit, which they're gonna include, with basically everyone, they demonstrate the reality of the White Walkers, and it terrifies Cersei. Apparently, the Mountain, or the Hound, this person can't tell, chops up the White, and it keeps moving. Jon shows them the only way to kill it is with dragonglass or fire. Cersei tells them she would send forces to help defeat the undead, but she admits to Jaime she was lying. She wants the undead to clear out as many of her enemies as possible. Disgusted, Jaime begins to ride north. Likely happens in episode 7. Tyrion takes a moment to talk to Cersei alone after the Dragon Pit parley. Cersei awakens in the bed soaked with blood. The general consensus is that she miscarries. Sam and Bran figure out Jon's heritage. He apparently is a legitimized Targaryen named Aegon. Jon and Dany have sex for the first time on the boat headed north. The wall falls at the end of the episode. Night's King attacks the wall with the reanimated Viserion. He now breathes blue flame. First, let me ask you, what do you think about that? The whole episode.
I really hate the idea of Jaime, like, riding north. Like, let's just put all the good guys on the same team. You know, that just doesn't sit with me well. And then the question is about the Undead Dragon. Like, I think that's a clever idea. Like, you're talking about, like, a dragon is, you know, they're one, you know, the one immunity, the one thing that can kill whites is fire, but dragons are fireproof. So maybe an undead dragon would be indestructible.
True.
I guess
not
maybe...
to a Valyrian steel sword. Oh shit!
Yeah.
Or a Valyrian steel arrow. What? Or spear. Oh shit! Or one of those harpoons used in the third Hobbit movie. What's up?
Or Kit Harington without his shirt off. You know, with his shirt off. Yeah.
Don't you remember that one time he was fighting the Magnar of Thin and the goat dude grabs his fucking head and bashes it on the anvil? Motherfucker still has his teeth and nose. What's up?
I mean. Yeah, that's... So, I mean, I could see them doing that. That's the blue fire doesn't make any sense, but, you know, because if something's dead, it can't really produce fire.
We've had this conversation before.
Yes,
like, it's the show. They're being Hollywood.
It's the show, yes. Yes, and, you know, the Ice Dragon book, I suppose, the dragon breathes blue fire. But, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see it happening. Yeah. Now the question is, Sam and Bran figuring out Jon's heritage, legitimized Targaryen named Aegon. Like, are they combining plots here? Is that the idea?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know how they would even get into that. I don't even know how they would get into that conversation. Well, I can kind of see it. You know, Bran is Jon, and Bran has seen it. Sam is, you know, Jon's best friend, so I can see how the conversation would play out. Sam is incredibly smart and he's read a lot of books, so I can see how that would play out. But the one thing that I don't get is, why would Jon and Dany have sex? She wants to do things differently, and I don't think incest is in her repertoire. I don't think she wants to, like, get into the same thing.
She doesn't know, though.
You don't think she knows?
I mean, I guess that's the tragedy, that they're boning and it's incest. They fall in love and it's incest.
But why would she want to with him? Like it took Dario, like Khal Drogo. Okay, that's self-explanatory. But the whole thing with Dario had to fucking go and kill like 2 dudes and betray his whole thing and give a mercenary company to her and help her take a city with 2 other guys. He had to do all these fucking things, and all Jon has to do is just show up and go, "Hey, what's going on?" And that's it. That's what happens. I mean, I feel like this is being forced. I feel like it's forced.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Dany's a liberated woman. She can have sex with whoever she wants. I'd say the question is more on the other side. Jon is the one that's more of the prude, right? Like, right. It took him a while to finally bone Ygritte.
That's true. And even when Melisandre was basically throwing herself at him, he was, you know, a little hesitant there. So why Dany?
I mean, I don't know many men who'd be able to resist, you know, Ygritte and Melisandre's advances. It took Jon a while. So that, I mean, it would be more on that sense that, like, would he be willing to just, you know, jump into bed with Dany because because, well, I mean, I guess he doesn't have his vows anymore, but he's still. I'd be like, he's still inexperienced, but then again, you know, the guy somehow knows how to do oral sex, having never had sex before. But
all right, we're getting into like an incredibly like insane and weird questions here. But okay, I mean, but what do you think? What do you think of episode 7?
That's why the wall falls. The wall falls not because they're having sex. The wall falls because Jon's going down on her.
Jesus Christ, Preston. But what do you think of episode 7 overall? I agree with you. Like, all the good guys are converging. I guess everything is converging and everybody's meeting up. I guess that has to happen at some point. But I figured it would happen under different circumstances. Like, I don't think everybody. I never thought everybody would come together as allies. I would think they would come together as neutral parties who are eventually brought together because Dany's bringing them together, or because maybe of a parlay in the Riverlands, meeting each other halfway, or I don't know. I didn't think they would come together because the White Walkers are all bringing them together.
Yeah, I mean it depends what the message is supposed to be. Is the message supposed to be that like war is bad, always, and the White Walkers are part of that idea that war is bad, or is war bad because it distracts us from the real problems with the world, like say global warming, and that we should all be getting together to fight global warming, and the White Walkers represent something like global warming, I could see it going both ways. That the tragedy is that somehow the White Walkers have made the enemy, that they're not supposed to be the enemy, or it could be that the White Walkers really do represent death, and we should be focusing on these real enemies rather than bickering amongst ourselves. But I think that would be a more effective message. That let's stop our bickering. If there were a few good guys on Cersei's side, it would be a bigger tragedy if the hero of Dany and the hero of Jon were forced to fight each other, or the hero of Sansa and the hero of Jon were forced to fight each other. Like, that's more of a tragedy when you like both sides. That's that. I mean, I'm gonna bring up Twilight, but like that's the appeal. But that's the appeal of the whole like Team Jacob, Team Edward like thing, is that both characters are likable, and so it's two protagonists against each other. Like, that's the I wish it were that rather than all the good people getting on one side together, with the only tragedy being some incest.
Well, like I said, like we're basically knowing what's like the gist of it, but a lot of characters are left out. We don't, nothing about Podrick or Brienne or a lot of characters are being left out. We're just knowing like the gist of what's happening, and not to say we don't know everything that's going on. There are some things that I'm sure will be put in there. But do you want to go into the uncertain chronologically?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
So basically, the leaker doesn't really know where these take place within the episodes. So uncertain chronologically is Cersei believes she is pregnant with Jaime's child. She has Qyburn examine her. Cersei does not hesitate in telling Jaime, like it happens within the first couple of episodes. Arya uses Walder Frey's face to hold a banquet and poison his sons. She makes sure the women are dismissed first. Will happen in the first couple episodes. Dorne and Highgarden get trashed within the first couple episodes by the Lannisters. That doesn't make any sense, though. Doesn't the Tyrells have like the most amount of men out of all the armies?
Right. I mean, the Tyrells should be able to completely, utterly conquer all of Westeros. But I could still see like some sort of surprise attack. I don't know, but I don't know where these forces keep coming from. I mean, I could see that happening, but you're right, it doesn't make sense. I could see the show doing it.
Yeah, Euron kills 2 of the Sand Snakes. He imprisons Ilaria and makes her watch as Tyene dies a slow death from poison. Euron's fleet destroys Yara's and he takes her prisoner. That we've seen. Theon abandons her, he jumps overboard and is rescued by some Ironborn. Dany tortures some Westerosi lords, including Sam's father and brother. Tyrion persuades Dany that the most of the people who die in a direct dragon attack on King's Landing would be innocent. So I guess that's what keeps Dany from attacking King's Landing in the first place. Jorah and Sam meet in the Old Town, and they find a way to cure his grayscale, which... Wow.
That's all you need.
It's just Sam. Sam is the guy.
He's been a maester for like 4 episodes, so
exactly.
Of course you're going to be able to cure grayscale. Some disease that's been haunting Westeros for thousands of years, of course.
Mm-hmm. Tyrion spends most of the season advising Dany, which I'm cool with. Tyrion also plans an attack on Casterly Rock involving a secret sewer entrance he used to sneak horrors into the castle. Okay, that I can understand, because in the books, aren't we told that Tyrion is put in charge of the sewers?
He was,
yeah. That makes sense. Arya encounters Nymeria on her way to Winterfell. Must happen within episodes 1 to 3, maybe early episode 4. Tyrion has at least one scene trying to convince Jon that Dany's the best choice for Westeros. Unclear if this is before or after the scene where Jon actually meets her, likely episode 3, possibly episode 4. Jon and Theon meet, Jon telling Theon that if it wasn't for what he did for Sansa, he'd be dead. Jaime travels to Highgarden and Olenna drinks poison. The claim is this happens when the Lannister army sack Highgarden. She admits to having killed Joffrey, and Jaime allows her to drink from the poison. Jaime returns to King's Landing in time for the Dragon Pit meeting. Okay, so this is all of Jaime's character, like all the entire time he's been on the show. Jaime is always like off doing other things. So I guess this is the thing he's doing before he ultimately comes back.
Right. Gotta give him some busy work.
Exactly. The Dothraki and Dany attack the Lannister army on their way back from the Reach. Jaime and Bronn are both there, despite the Lannister army having a giant anti-dragon spear gun designed by Qyburn, which sounds cool to me. They are defeated. Bronn saves Jaime from a dragon, and the two manage to escape, likely episode 4 or 5. Jon remains at Dragonstone during this battle, as he is not aligned with her yet. This part, I think, is also... I expect this part to happen. Jon isn't afraid of Drogon and pets him on Dany's return from the battle, which Drogon allows. This surprises Dany. After Dany's attack on the Lannisters, Jon realizes that what he needs to do is provide proof of the undead army, and that will likely happen in episode 4 or 5. Jorah doesn't care for Jon initially, but they warm up to each other pretty quickly, including a scene where Jon offers Longclaw back to Jorah, who refuses it, which I think is awesome. I would love that scene. I really hope they do it justice, where he offers it back.
You know what I would love more? I would love Jorah to be like, thank you. Like, that would surprise me more. Like, that would be so much cooler. Like, thank you. And then, like, you're expecting him to be like, no, you can have it. Like, that would be great.
My lord, your father gave this to me for me to prove my loyalty, and he just gets this really long speech. Here, I give it to you. Why, thank you. Thanks for keeping it. Thanks, bro. Cool guy. This Jon Snow, cool guy. Sam and Gilly and Baby Sam leave Old Town in episode 5 for Winterfell, but no claims that they actually make it there. Though he did say Sam and Bran figure out Jon's heritage, and that Gilly figures out Rhaegar's marriage. What? Does this mean... who gives a fuck? Sam and Gilly shit nobody cares about. I think this is cool. Arya and Brienne spar, but Brienne is in attendance at the Dragon Pit scene. So either Brienne separates from the main group and returns to Winterfell very quickly after the Dragon Pit meeting, or she doesn't join Jon and Davos initially to Dragonstone. So what's happening here is that Brienne and Arya do have an encounter again, which I do want to see. There will be a flashback scene to Rhaegar and Lyanna's wedding, which I always thought that they quickly had a wedding at Winterfell, with only very few people in attendance, namely the Kingsguard. And I swear,
well, it couldn't be at Winterfell. If it happened, I mean, I will say that we people call this headcanon. You know, when fans talk to each other a little too much, the headcanon of Rhaegar and Lyanna is that they went to the Isle of Faces, and you know, got married there, and that way, like, and because they're in front of a heart tree, like, then Bran can see it, and
right,
you know, all this fan fiction. It doesn't make any sense. Like, Rhaegar was married. Polygamy is not a thing under the faith of the Seven. Like, it's kind of a big deal. They fought wars over this stuff. But I don't know, if the showrunners have been reading fan fiction, it's quite possible that they can do that.
And the last spoiler here is Littlefinger tries to play Arya and Sansa against each other using the letter Sansa wrote to Robb. I remember this letter. It's basically the letter that when Robb gets, he's like, Sansa wrote this. And then the Maester Luwin is like, it's your sister's handwriting, but the queen's words.
Right,
and then
right.
in the same scene, Robb is like, call the banners. And that's that letter. Sansa figures out she's being played with Bran's help. So, okay. The Stark siblings are working with each other to kill Littlefinger. But at the same time, though, Littlefinger doesn't know or care who Arya or Bran are. They're completely separate from her storyline. It would be such great character development for Sansa to kill Littlefinger on her own because she's learned from him. She's seen how he works. And it will come full circle for her to just dispatch of him on her own, using every single trick that he has used on the show so far. You know? Not only that, but she has a big advantage against him. She knows that he wants her. So...
I mean, there's definitely just some potential with Sansa. Like, she hasn't done anything yet. Like, she hasn't done anything on her own. Like, everyone keeps...
She won she technically helped win that battle, the Battle of Bastards.
Sure, but that was because Littlefinger, like, set the whole thing up. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you know, yeah, she pulled the trigger. But let's be honest, like, Littlefinger, like, is the whole one that set up Sweet Robin's army. And is just like, you can use this if you want. You know, and then, like, Sweet Robin, like, is like, cool, let's do it. You know, so, I mean, in a sense, Sansa still hasn't, like, realized her potential, which is really quite sad. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean...
Remember in season 4, at the end of season 4, when we all thought she was going to be like Darth Sansa?
Darth Sansa.
Yeah.
She's wearing a black dress. Oh.
Dyed her hair black.
Oh, God.
Like, you know, we all think she's going to be like that badass.
She's entering the fray. She's totally gonna, you know, be outmaneuvering people just like Littlefinger, which is, I mean, it would be a little anticlimactic for Littlefinger to get, you know, caught by a bunch of children and to be killed in this fashion.
What is this, Scooby-Doo? I would have gotten away for it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids. That's what I'm talking about. It's exactly what you said with Mira. The show doesn't need Mira anymore. She served her purpose, so now she goes home. The show doesn't need Littlefinger anymore because he's still a thing, and we still need to figure out what to do with him. But hey, let's just do one final thing where we get the Stark siblings.
I mean, I feel like it's like with Roose Bolton. Like, we're gonna take this really clever schemer, and then we're just gonna stab him.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You know, it seems like that's what they're doing with Littlefinger. It's you know, we got too many characters. Got to get rid of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could let them survive and let them, you know, go off to do other things. Like at the end of the show, you know, leave Littlefinger alive, and you know he's in the back watching things, or maybe he's been defeated to the point where he can never come back, or maybe he's exiled. Like, you could leave a lot of these characters alive.
Yeah, but, you know, I would love to see an actual main character surprisingly die. Like, I would love it if, like, well, I mean, imagine like if they killed Arya, like how people would be like, what? Like, that would just shock you, right? You'd be like, oh my God.
that would cause, yeah, go ahead.
Like, imagine if Arya thinks she's gonna sneak in and kill Littlefinger, and then he freaking just kills her. Like, wouldn't that be?
That would put Game of Thrones back on the map for me, yes.
Right? You'd be like, holy crap, Game of Thrones still has it. Like, last season was honestly, like, everybody superfluous was written out, and, like, nobody significant, you know, no main characters really died. I mean, yeah, they blew up Marjorie and Loras, you know. And
that kind of surprised me. I thought Marjorie would come out alive. I thought Marjorie, or at least Loras, would come out alive in that.
But, you know, they still didn't quite, like, you know, reach the level of importance that where I would be shocked to see them die. I'm talking like Jaime, Cersei, Tyrion, Dany, Jon, Bran, Arya, you know, POV characters, you know, like that's the thing that's going to shock me if you kill them off. And
oh God, yeah, I still remember when, like, Ned Stark, he was like the main character for the first book and the first season. Out of nowhere, boom, he's done. What the fuck?
Right. Ned Stark, like, and when you think about it, Catelyn, Ned Stark, like, those are the two big shocks of, like, the entire series, right? Like, taking a main character that you've been with, who, like, from their point of view, and you're just like, yeah, kill him. You know, that's a shock. Like, and they haven't done that in a long time. So
that's true.
I would love to see someone just bite it. Someone that you really thought was going to make it till the end.
Unpopular opinion, Tyrion. Unpopular opinion,
oh God.
Tyrion. Like, people would riot in the streets.
My unpopular opinion would be, like, for the next book, like, wouldn't it be great if Jon, like, actually stayed dead? Like, yeah, you can have him in his wolf and everything, but wouldn't it be such a relief if Jon were just, like, gone? Like, not coming back.
What I'm thinking is he'll be resurrected, yes, but he'll be like such a shell of his former self. Not only that though, but in the Battle of Bastards, do you remember that one scene where like Jon, he's in the fray, he's fighting, everything's happening around him, and Ramsay launches arrows, and he fucking goes, he looks up, he's like, oh, and then he gets down, like covers his head, and like a cartoon, the arrows kind of hit everything around him but him. It almost like fucking outlines his body. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right. The show needs to be reminded that like people
shit has consequences.
People shouldn't have plot armor. Like the show has lost like that was what's great about Ned and Kat dying is that everyone's like, wow, these people don't have plot armor. Like plot
exactly.
But since season 3, like we have seen nothing but plot armor. Like
Well, I would agree with you there, but if it was George writing the show, he would Jon would have lost like a pinky or an ear, or Jon the one thing I would be okay with, I'm sure some of the ladies would be okay with when it comes to Jon would be like he loses an eye and he permanently has like one of those cool looking scars over his eye.
Right. When's the last time someone's been paralyzed or had their nose cut off or had their hand cut off? Like it just hasn't happened. Like it hasn't happened. Since season 3, when Jaime lost his hand, like all our main characters are great. In fact, all of our main characters have become more good. Like they've gained. Like Tyrion has just become an absolute good guy. Like somehow, Jon has become even more boring. Like Dany has become even gooder. And I used gooder intentionally. Like it's just like I miss the darkness. I miss the shades of gray with our protagonists. Instead of everybody becoming a cartoon. Like it might at this point Cersei might as well have a maniacal laughter and be like
maniacal laughter. I mean,
I do things because it feels good.
Based on what we read here, I think the most bullshit I would have to call would be Jorah and the Sam thing. I would love the one thing I'm excited to see is the Dothraki and Dany attack on the Lannister army. I think Jaime and the whole Olenna thing, I can see that happening, but at the same time, I'm very indifferent towards it because, like,
let Jorah die. You're right. Let Jorah die a freaking painful grayscale death. Like, let him die. Like that would be powerful. Like having him cured. Like, come on.
Well, they could also kind of use Jorah as a suicide bomber in the sense where he grabs a dragon stone, a dragon glass dagger, and he runs towards the fucking White Walkers, and they're just throwing shit at him, but his grayscale is protecting him because I guess grayscale and White Walker magic, whatever, sucks to each. I don't know, and he just suicide bombs the fuck out of the White Walkers.
Yeah, or
something like that.
And then it would work like with Jon offering him the sword and him going thank you, and then dying. Then Jon can be like, well, might as well take this back.
I love that. I really do hope that would be so great. Well, thank you. Well, that wraps it up.
And I think there's no reason for Jorah to like Jon. Like anybody, any handsome man with a penis that could potentially be inside Dany is somebody that Jorah would hate. Like he should.
I see where you're coming. I see where you're coming from there. But Sam and Gilly needs to really leave. I think. I feel like her character is way overused. She doesn't need to be there, in my opinion.
I mean, she better have some sort of use in the end. Like,
yeah, she won't. She won't though. What else? What else is here? Tyrion trying to convince Jon. I can see that happening. But the one thing I really want to see, I want to see more of Westeros. I want to see Casterly Rock, Storm's End, Sunspear at least once. Highgarden. Hopefully, we get to see Highgarden. The whole Euron thing, I feel like Euron should have come in season 5.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the only reason Euron is there is because we need someone to side with Cersei, and we need someone to kill off a couple other characters that just need to, like, wrap up. There's no reason for Euron to be in a lot of these things. I mean, he was out for most of the season, for most of the show. In the books, I would say he is the second biggest threat to the entire world.
Oh yeah, yeah, if not the biggest, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Like, once again, I will say this though. Like, these leaks, overall, it's gonna be an interesting season. I know a lot. I know
they're safe. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
Is that everything in here is safe. Like it's all the heroes are gonna be fine. The people that get killed off are minor or villains. I mean, yeah, Littlefinger dying is like the most significant death we see. You know, it's everybody's feeling like how a fan should feel. Oh, I like Jon, but I'm shaky on Dany. You know, like Jorah and Jon get along. Like, I don't know. I would say it's too safe even for the show.
Right.
Even for the showrunners. Like,
but it's gonna be entertaining. Like, even though you and I are kind of shitting on the show a little, I still like it, and I'm sure you still like some of it.
No, I love it. What are you talking about? I mean, it's insanely entertaining, and I mean,
well, in your own way. But I still like the show. I still do. I love it. It's just I have certain issues with a lot of the things on here, and you brought up some great fucking points. I'm still gonna enjoy it. I'll probably be buying the Blu-ray. Oh, dude, do you buy the Blu-ray, by the way?
No.
Oh, I'm collecting the Blu-ray. Fucking seasons 1 through 5 have like great artwork on like the cover, and then for season 6 they completely changed the cover. So if I buy the season 6 Blu-ray with like a special cover, it doesn't look like my other ones. Motherfuckers. But over, like, I haven't bought season 6 Blu-ray yet, but I'm going to. I still like the show a lot. It's just that I really do feel like from the very beginning, not even the beginning, like from season 2 or season 3 onwards, if they had 2 or 3 extra episodes, you could have resolved a lot of these plot lines better.
Oh, yeah.
You could have included a little bit, not a little bit more character, but you could have given us more character development. I feel like a lot of these things are wrapping up, and they don't know how to wrap them up because they don't have the guidance of the books.
Right. And I think, if anything, maybe they're even buying themselves some time. Like, hoping, maybe that next year Winds of Winter and will happen, and we can maybe figure out what's, where things are going. And but I don't know. I just wish. Wish they would.
It's way too late for that.
Yeah,
they've already written season 8. It's already set in stone, and I think that was George's plan all along, was to wait him out.
Yeah, I mean, once he kind of figured that if he wasn't gonna be able to finish all of them, then it was done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and that was a theory someone put in the comment section, that George, he kind of doesn't like the way the show is going, and he doesn't want to put out the book to give the show, extra shit to fix their shit. He wants the show to kind of blow dick, and he wants his legacy to be the books, not the show. He wants there to be a clear contrast difference at some point within the saga, that it goes a completely different and sometimes better way than the show does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was, being that sinister. Like, there's, even if the show were good, I mean, it is good, but even if the show were a masterpiece, like, he wouldn't find it to be a masterpiece, like, because it's not his anymore. You'd have to be, critical. Like, like, George R. R. Martin has spent essentially like the past 20 years thinking about one thing, and like, if somebody else is controlling it, it's not going to be your thing, and you're going to be upset, and you're going to be critical. And that's what any human being would do. Like,
right.
I'm sure he would deny it in any interview, but come on, you're a human being, and this is your baby. If somebody else does something with it, you're going to be like, oh God, like, this is horrible. Like, this is why like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle like came back and did like more Sherlock Holmes. Like, he was done with Sherlock Holmes, and then people kept doing shit, and he's like, fuck, I'll come back and like claim this other stuff doesn't exist. Or the same thing happened with Cervantes with Don Quixote. Like, he did the first Don Quixote book, and then other people were doing Don Quixote stories, and so he comes back and he's like, no, this is freaking Don Quixote, and then I'm gonna kill him at the end so that nobody else can do anything. Like, Like,
Well, with Thrones, it's a little. I wouldn't say it's complicated, but I feel like the world is big enough to where you have the main timeline, but there can be other stories in the same world, and I hope people do come, and I hope people do come and do their own stories in this timeline, not in this timeline, in this world, but they leave that timeline alone. Like they make a character Joe Schmo of House Schmo, and he's in this corner of the world, completely separate from everything else. And I picked up Joe Schmo picks up a newspaper. Oh, Ned Stark's been executed. Well, fuck that guy.
but you can actually see how possessive George R. R. Martin is. Like, he released his The World of Ice and Fire book, right? And
I wouldn't say that's his.
Well,
I did a review on this. Like, those two people, they wrote a majority of it, and you can tell.
But you could the stuff that, so the book is essentially in what I say 3 parts. So there is the Targaryen history, which is a summary of George's stuff. Then there's like the Westeros geography section, which is a summary of stuff they found in the book, in the series. And then there's the Essos section. And he essentially let them have the Essos section, but if you notice, there's no section on Karth, there's no section on Slaver's Bay. If you actually read Braavos, there's incredibly little information on Braavos, considering, like, there's compared to other stuff. Like, he let them have like what's going on in E.T. and like these faraway lands. Like, that's how possessive he was. Like, you can write about like that, because I'm never going to write about that. But anything that's happening in Westeros, anything where Dany is, like, I'm not going to let you write on that. And so that's how possessive he was. He didn't give them anything important. He let them have...
But don't you think they should have waited until the books were done? I feel like The World of Ice and Fire would have been a better book had there been time after the entire series finished, where they could go and fill in the corners and pockets of the planet that needed to be filled.
Oh, I'm sure he'll do another one. But
he's actually, when he's done with the series, did you hear about how he's actually wants to go in and do a very in-depth Targaryen history?
Yes, the Blood and Fire book, yeah. But, if he has time to go back and do more Dunk and Egg and everything. But, I don't think any of us, I think, we're all just hoping that he'll even get A Dream of Spring off, so...
All right, Preston, we're gonna end it here.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining us. We wanna produce more episodes, but you are a very busy guy. You have a life. Same with me. But we'll try to do. I want to go into more episodes with you about a lot of these other theories that you have. Like, for example, I would want you to explain to me like the pink letter, or like the Dornish master plan, and we'll go back and forth on that. Would you be okay with doing that?
Of course. And
yeah, but I want to do more episodes, and if people really do enjoy it, we'll do more. But we've actually been talking for 2 hours, but this podcast is about to be like an hour and so minutes. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe to me, subscribe to Preston Jacobs. I'll leave a link in the description below. Preston, what's your next video coming out? What's the stuff you're working on now?
Well, I'm working on I do reviews of the Thousand Worlds, which is George R. R. Martin's stories that he wrote in the 70s and 80s that are also in a collected universe. I do read-throughs of the Winds of Winter sample chapters, line by line, analyzing them.
Keeping up with winter, right?
I do prepping for winter. Yeah, I do a comparison of the book and the show. We're currently nearing the end of season 4, and then I do theory videos. I'm currently in the middle of doing a bunch of murder mystery theory videos. Currently discussing who really killed Big Walder in Winterfell.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, you have a lot of series. Holy shit. I'm currently working with other YouTubers to really do something a little different, book related. You've seen a little bit of it, and you liked it.
Yes.
If you want to see what I'm kind of working on, check out the YouTube channel Tail Foundry. Guy's pretty cool. I'm working with him a lot. Definitely big shout out to him. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode. By the way, what the fuck do we call this podcast before we what, a feast for hoes or a feast for bros? I really want to do Brotherhood Without Manners. That's fucking taken. But
we'll come up with something. We'll come up with something.
We'll have to come up with something, because god fucking damn it.
Watchers on your balls.
Watchers. I feel like
these are the worst names. These are the worst names.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people would have a problem with that. But a Feast for Bros podcast? What do you think?
We'll see. We'll come up with something.
All right, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.